Imagine waking up tomorrow and nothing anyone says could ruin your day. No insult, no rejection, no betrayal, no bad news. Not because life suddenly became easier, but because you finally mastered the only thing that truly belongs to you, your mind. For over 2,000 years, the Stoics believed that the greatest prison was never built from stone. It was built from uncontrolled emotions. Today, more than ever, we are constantly manipulated by fear, outrage, anxiety, envy, and endless distractions. But what if the greatest form of freedom isn't having more money, more power, or more success? What if true freedom is becoming emotionally untouchable? Stay with me until the end, because you're about to discover the ancient Stoic principle that has transformed ordinary people into unshakable individuals for centuries. Picture a man standing at the center of the most powerful empire on earth. Every sunrise brought new wars, political conspiracies, deadly plagues, and impossible decisions that would affect millions of lives. Most people would have been consumed by stress or crushed by responsibility. Yet before he faced any of those challenges, he sat alone with a notebook. He didn't write strategies for conquest or speeches for the Senate. Instead, he wrote reminders to himself. He reminded himself that no matter how chaotic the world became, his greatest responsibility was to govern his own mind. That man was Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor whose private journal would later become one of history's greatest philosophical works. In those pages, he wrote words that still echo across the centuries. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Those words contain one of the greatest secrets ever discovered. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control things they never could. Other people's opinions, unexpected setbacks, the economy, the weather, the past, and even the future. Every failed attempt leaves them frustrated, anxious, or angry. The Stoics understood that suffering begins the moment we demand control over what was never ours to command. They taught that true peace begins when we separate what belongs to us from what belongs to fate. Our thoughts belong to us. Our choices belong to us. Our actions belong to us. Everything else is simply life unfolding according to forces beyond our control. Epictetus understood this lesson better than almost anyone. Before becoming one of history's greatest philosophers, he lived as a slave. He possessed no wealth, no political influence, and no social status. Yet despite having almost nothing, he discovered a freedom that many kings never achieved. He famously said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Think about that for a moment. The event itself is rarely what destroys us. It is the story we tell ourselves about the event. Two people lose the same job. One believes life is over. The other believes a new chapter has just begun. The same event creates two completely different emotional realities because the interpretation is different. The Stoics weren't trying to eliminate emotions. They were teaching us to master the judgments that create those emotions. Imagine an archer preparing for the most important competition of his life. He trains every day for years. He perfects his breathing, strengthens his body, sharpens his focus, and studies every detail of his technique. Finally, the day arrives. He raises his bow, aims with perfect precision, and releases the arrow. At that exact moment, a powerful gust of wind changes its course, and the arrow misses the target. Most people would call that failure. The Stoics would disagree. They believed the archer's responsibility ended the moment he released the arrow. Everything before that moment belonged to him. Everything after belonged to nature. Success was never guaranteed by the result. Success was defined by the excellence of the effort. This simple lesson is known as the Dichotomy of Control, and it remains one of the most practical ideas ever developed. Every challenge in your life can be met with one question: is this within my control? If the answer is yes, then act with everything you have. If the answer is no, then let it go. Fighting reality has never changed reality. It has only exhausted the person doing the fighting. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about how often that happens. How many nights have you lost sleep over conversations that never occurred? How many disasters have you imagined that never happened? How many fears disappeared the moment you finally faced them? The human mind is incredibly creative, but when left undisciplined, it creates prisons that do not exist. Anxiety feeds on imagined futures. Regret feeds on an unchangeable past. Meanwhile, life continues to unfold only in the present moment. The Stoics constantly challenged their own thoughts. They asked themselves whether their fears were based on evidence or assumption. They questioned emotional reactions before allowing those reactions to become actions. That simple pause between feeling and responding became one of their greatest sources of strength. Now imagine someone insulting you in front of a crowd. Your heart begins to race. Your pride demands immediate revenge. Every instinct tells you to fight back. Most people obey that impulse without thinking. The Stoic does something different. The Stoic pauses. That pause may last only a few seconds, but it changes everything. In that brief moment, emotion loses its authority, and reason takes its place. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people act according to what they believe is right, even when they are mistaken. Understanding this doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it prevents another person's ignorance from becoming your emotional prison. Every time you react without thinking, you hand someone else control over your peace. Every time you respond with calm and wisdom, you reclaim that control. Another Stoic practice often surprises modern readers. It is called negative visualization. At first, it sounds pessimistic, but it is actually one of the most powerful exercises for building emotional resilience. The Stoics would occasionally imagine losing the things they loved: their health, their wealth, their relationships, even their own lives. Not because they expected tragedy, but because they understood that everything we possess is temporary. By remembering this truth, gratitude grows stronger. Fear grows weaker. We stop taking life for granted. We begin appreciating ordinary moments because we recognize they are never guaranteed. Ironically, accepting life's uncertainty makes us less anxious, not more. We stop demanding permanence from a world built on change. Modern psychology has reached many of the same conclusions. Exposure to fear reduces its power. Acceptance reduces anxiety. Resistance strengthens suffering. The Stoics discovered these truths almost 2,000 years before modern science could explain them. They understood that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing wisdom despite fear. Emotional strength is not pretending painful emotions don't exist. It is refusing to let those emotions make your decisions. Perhaps the greatest mistake people make is believing that they are their emotions. They say, "I am angry, I am anxious, I am broken." But emotions are visitors. They arrive, they stay for a while, and eventually they leave. They are experiences, not identities. The Stoics trained themselves to observe emotions without becoming them. They watched anger arise without surrendering to it. They noticed fear without allowing it to dictate their actions. They experienced sadness without believing it would last forever. This ability to observe rather than obey became the foundation of their inner freedom. Imagine two versions of yourself standing side by side. One reacts to every inconvenience with frustration. Every criticism becomes a wound. Every setback becomes proof that life is unfair. Every obstacle becomes an excuse to quit. The other version faces the exact same world, but with a disciplined mind. Criticism becomes feedback. Failure becomes education. Obstacles become opportunities to practice patience, courage, and resilience. The world around them is identical. The only difference is the philosophy guiding their thoughts. That difference changes everything. Marcus Aurelius buried children. Seneca lived under constant political danger. Epictetus spent years as a slave. None of them escaped suffering. Stoicism was never about avoiding pain. It was about refusing to let pain become your master. They discovered a freedom that cannot be purchased, inherited, or granted by society. It must be earned through daily practice. Every difficult conversation becomes an opportunity to practice patience. Every disappointment becomes an opportunity to practice acceptance. Every fear becomes an opportunity to practice courage. Every single day offers another chance to strengthen the mind. So the next time life tests you, remember the lesson that guided the greatest Stoic minds in history. Ask yourself one simple question: is this within my control? If it is, act with courage, discipline, and excellence. If it is not, release it without resentment. Remember the words of Marcus Aurelius: the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Master your thoughts, and your emotions will begin to follow. Master your emotions, and no insult, no failure, no disappointment, and no storm will ever truly own you again. Because absolute control has never meant controlling the world. Absolute control means refusing to let the world control you. And in a society where almost everyone is ruled by emotion, becoming the master of your own mind is perhaps the greatest victory you will ever achieve.